Am I live? I'm not live. I'm live. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, I just want to point out that we do have an interpreter in the back right-hand corner. If you are needing interpretation services, please go back there and she can get you set up at this time. Good. Okay. Yes, of course.
Para ustedes, las personas que necesiten intérprete, tenemos la intérprete aquí en la esquina con equipo para que puedan escuchar. Gracias.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so the time is 4:04 p.m. and we are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. If we can please start out with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Here.
Commissioner Chaparro,
Present.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chair Murillo,
Present.
Chair Shaw Hernandez.
Here. We do have quorum. And let the record state that we did meet in closed session this morning, starting at 7:45 a.m. Nothing was discussed in closed session that is not here on the agenda today. With that being said, the commission may convene an open session to take action, if any, on the closed session items. Seeing none, the commission convenes as the Board of County Finance and the Board of County Commission in open session. Today, we are here to hear from our 4 finalists for the county manager position of Doña County. We are going to call them up one by one. They do have a presentation to share with us. They will be in charge of the presentation, and this is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel as well for anyone that is out there that wants to join. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring up Mr. Andrews first. Welcome.
Not my PowerPoint, so I'm not going to know that one too well. Hello, Commission. Hello, everyone. It feels odd turning my back, so hello. My name is Scott Andrews. I am currently the Assistant City Manager in Bakersfield, California, the 48th largest city in the U.S. I'm here to talk to you today about implementation for the strategic plan. I'll get in the groove here after a slide or two. So here's the good news. This hardworking team behind us has already approached level 8 out of the 9 steps in ICMA, the International City Management Association's best practices. So this would be my 4th city carrying out a strategic plan, and that's really exciting to me. It's one of the few things you get to do throughout your career that really puts your fingerprints on a community. So I'm not going to gloss over all of this, but steps 4, 5, and 6, you'll hear a little bit about in the slides ahead, but step 8 being the big one, that's how we're here today. And so what is a strategic plan? It's our playbook. It's what we use to get us by. They're typically updated every 5 to 20 years even. So what it isn't, it's not something you put on your shelf. It's not something, it's just an exercise, or it's not something we do to check a box. This is our opportunity to implement real change in the community incrementally so that we can measure our success. Taking a step back, I won't read slides off to you because none of us like that. But as far as the vision side of it, I'll focus quite a bit on this one because that's why we're here today, and what you'll hear me talk a lot about is community. In your vision plan, you mentioned the county being one for the community where we all grow, thrive, and age well together. Thrive, that keyword really jumped out at me, so you'll hear a lot more about that in the slides ahead. But I circled the belonging civic muscle of the 7 vital measures that focus on physical, mental, and social well-being. I'm going to spend most of the time talking in the belonging and civic measure implementation. We're all going to hear some fantastic things, and I'm going to hear from some other folks here shortly. It's hard when you're coming into a community and you're the outside candidate. This isn't the first time I've done that, though. So what I always go back to is I look at the hard work that the team has put in already. Again, we're already at step 8 out of the 9 best practice steps. The hardest step, though, and I think where we really need to make sure we get everything together is in the strategic alignment. So I know we were tasked in the objectives to have each department implement at least 1 belonging and civic measure, but I can tell you as year 2 doing this in Bakersfield right now, it's nice to have 3 of those maybe off the bat, because realistically, we're going to find the ones that we can measure the best early on and the ones that don't make sense for us. But the harder thing is, this is a lot of work. This is 5 years of implementation before we do the 20-year general plan. So we can't say, hey, team, here's all this work you're already doing, and let's do more. So what we have to do is embed all these goals within the individual departments. And that slide in the top left there, that is the strategic alignment framework recommended by ICMA. And so that's going to be the core priority for me coming in as your new county manager. And of course, the performance measures speak for themselves, but we can't have too many, so it's bombarded, and we can't measure everything, and we can't be everything to all people. So it's incredible to prioritize and focus on those. Again, as I mentioned in the opening slide, this isn't my first rodeo per se. I've implemented 4 of these in different communities, 2 in strategic plan sessions in Bakersfield and in Smyrna, where the Atlanta Braves play, and done very focused ones for downtown and economic development and 2 other communities. This is simply a draft, but what I want to show some of the folks in the audience that haven't already been here, because I'm not going to get in the weeds because we only have 15 minutes, is that the game plan is in place. You'll see these color-coded items here. This is draft, of course, but these have already been assigned to the different teams. So what my role is to come in and make sure each department understands those goals, and we prioritize from there, making sure we don't have too many goals. I mean, if we have 15 different items for each area, we're not going to hit more than 5 of those. So we need to really prioritize and focus on all those. So again, the playbook is already in place. This is where we'd be working 90 days out. My approach, and I knew I'd have a lot of team members here today, and hopefully it's not the only chance I get to talk to you all, but I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about that. It wouldn't matter if it was 2 goals or 200 goals. The 2 that were given for this assignment, they already have, as you see there, the vital condition teams already assigned to it. Again, I would like to fine-tune that and look at that. But again, the playbook is already there. My goal is to break down barriers, make sure we have funding in place, and each year or every 6 months better, to look back and reassess where we have. Make sure the team has the tools they need for professional development and training to implement all of these. So again, I'm not a micromanager, but where there's real issues, we will dig in. Where it's a priority, we will dig in. My goal is to give the team the tools to do their job and get out of their way. Okay, we're still at 90 days here. Just examples of the 2 goals we talked about. And for those that haven't read the fantastic strategic plan, I highly recommend it. It's great, easy reading for each of you. But this is a specific example from one of them, one of those being miles of trails implemented. So just very specifically, this one was identified to the community development department, and that makes a ton of sense. But what I would want to do coming in is take a look at this. Do we have the right people in the right places? Are each of these departments already aligned with these goals? Are there new people coming on? Are there people that are passionate that just came on board through the new internship program, or people that have a passion to be involved? Should we get them involved in this as well? I think at this point, that's where I would start looking at those different areas. And then we need to start planning for the first ever state of the county. So this is where we would reach out to our 38 colonias, reach out to the people in the community, make sure they know about this months in advance so they've heard about it.
Here, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes, can I get you to go back about 3 slides?
Yes, sir.
A couple more.
Yes, sir.
This one. What is, does this slide actually show our vision statement or our mission?
I got it right here.
Because I'm not sure I saw that on that slide.
No, that was high level. That's the International City and County Management Association's practices for aligning goals within the department, sir.
Okay, so on the slide, if this were our slide, what would our vision statement be? Would it be on this slide or would it not be
No,
on the slide?
sir. No, my goal would be to implement all of those within the areas. So I was simply showing the best practices, sir.
Okay, if you go back, go to the other one again. The reason I asked that is because the first time the commission actually gets engaged here, if I'm not, let me put my glasses on. So I can see it.
Yes, sir.
It looks like only in setting the board priorities, like 3 levels down. So, but we also be involved in the vision
Oh, yes.
statement as well? the
Yes, sir.
mission?
You're stuck with us. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Fast forward back to where we were. So again, I mentioned earlier, we can't have too many metrics for everything. We can't measure everything. So for each specific goal, I would lean on our team of experts. I'm a generalist. We have experts for every single area. I know a little bit about everything, but we have leaders in every area. So I would want to trust their judgment on what makes the most sense for us to measure and lean on the commission to give feedback on that, to your point, Mr. Reynolds. So for this specific example, there's a boatload of metrics that could be measured there. So we would want to look at all the available ones, see what makes sense. What are we already measuring that we're not tracking? And then implement a system that we can have that readily available to our community members, constituents, and our commission. And at this point, as we're getting closer to the kickoff, I noticed our anniversary is coming up on January 9th, so that might be a good opportunity to pair with that and maybe implement a community event for Doña Day, and then share our calendar that I'll discuss a little later on. Going back to the original vision statement, a commission for the community. That really stood out to me, and I think what'll set me apart from some other individuals is my entrenching myself in the community. So when we go to collaborate with our stakeholders and take our goals from internal to external and partner with them, it's not an effort to ever have our staff get weighed in on by folks that may know more or different. We're not here as a checks and balance for the staff. This is to be transparent with the community, to get community input and involve them in the process so that we have a wider range of people that are working towards the same goals. So the obvious ones come out, Chamber of Commerce, New Mexico State University. I'm not gonna read slide by slide there, but I think the ones we do miss are getting entrenched. This is a very young community. This is a family-oriented community. So I think reaching everyone, the creation of a youth commission. I didn't see any citizens academies, maybe just the police and fire side, but doing that county-wide, really reaching people where they are. You'll see that common theme, and people are most unified around their family. What I found great success in previous communities was going to people where they are at their churches, at their baseball and soccer games, and with their families. And we want to take our residents from just residents to neighbors, and neighbors from stakeholders, and we want none of those titles. We want everyone to be our community champions. I really hone in on that. This is some success I've seen in my two earliest communities. And one thing I think we really need to do better at is our messaging, the way we're communicating with the community, talking about all the things we are. It's a vast community. I mean, 5,000 square miles almost. That's vast. So going to them where they are is going to bring them together. That creates the community, and then engaging them through messaging and telling our story better. There's so many fantastic things that we're all doing and the staff is doing, but we're not sharing that story. The second one of our staff members mess up on something, you know that's going in the media. But joking aside, I think it's critical to really implement community, to bring community together, and not just go forward with the state of the county, but every 6 months we have the opportunity to bring them in, recognize our volunteers of the year. This is a slide from a previous city I was in where we recognized some folks there from Business Alliance, Preservation Society, Youth Commission, and then we let the community even vote on that, so they got involved, and you see some of the winners there, and that's a picture of me when I was much younger and happier, 15 years ago or so. But this is, that was a joke, everyone, please smile. But this is an opportunity to really engage the community and to bring them together. Going back to one of the earlier slides, the 6 core values, and a lot of places also call these guiding principles. They just happen to be transparency, authenticity, integrity, honesty, reliability, civility and respect, and value in serving the community. I had a little fun there with some of my marketing background, and culture and respect didn't quite spell anything out, so we went with excellence in the way we treat each other. So thrive is one of our words you saw in our vision statement. I really honed in on that. I think it's an opportunity to take this and to hold ourselves accountable with this, staff members, as leaders in the community as well. So take this to a point where we're holding ourselves accountable to this, not just in our evaluations, but also when we report out to the community at our Community Champions Banquets or State of the County, reaching them where we are, being honest about our success. And one thing I noticed on the strategic plan, I think you noted right up top, one of the statements was, it isn't about the goal, but about our progress, something along those lines. And it's a good thing because it's probably gonna take 2 good years to get meaningful traction to what we're doing and see in year 2 where we have to align our budget around our goals. So I think we get that buy-in from the team by also tying in, you'll hear me reference Thrive, in our report cards that, Chairman, you hopefully will give at the state of the county, and also we will have implementing at the largest scale for our staff. So in addition to the quarterly assessments that were already identified in strategic plan, I talked a little bit about this. We want to integrate this in everything we do. So I would work with the HR team and hopefully integrate these as items within this. In my current organization, we do the same. Our acronym spells out CARES, and on everything we do, if we type an agenda item in, which one of these does it fit, and those commission members will accept it. And then we also have our evaluations for those traits, so C being collaboration, how that fits in with our goals. So again, taking those exact letters we had, tied in with our vision statement, putting it in, it's a lot of work. And looking over at HR's way, she's not making eye contact with me, right? But joking aside, to get to a point where, again, this may be a phased approach, but we can hold ourselves accountable to those same goals we told the community we're going to hold ourselves accountable for. And then use this for prioritizing our agenda items, getting involved in our town hall meetings, and even some of our branding. But measuring our success, it could be as simple as a 1 to 5 on each things we do, but metrics are everything. It's easy for me to say we're doing a good job, or for our staff to say we're doing a good job, but to hold ourselves accountable, and then to honestly report back to the community. That's absolutely critical. 6 to 12 months in, at this point, we should have locked in our survey. So each of our departments has already been given at least 1 to 2 measures that they're reporting out on. We're consistently meeting as a team at this point and tying this into the huge amount of work they're already doing, because this is a huge, huge county and not the biggest team to get all this done. So we have to incorporate that into the work they're already doing. And then when we're doing that, we have to be reporting this out at our State of the County events. One thing you'll hear me mention in the upcoming slide is I would like to go to each one of your areas. You heard me talk about this in our one-on-one meetings, and go to your districts to reach them where they are, formally and informally throughout the year. And then what are we doing to track this? I know the city uses, I believe, Invisio for theirs. Great product I've used in the past. Send City's another one. Are we leveraging AI at all? We have a lot of work and very few people to accomplish all this, and then we're adding this to it. So we're going to get streamlined, and it will get a whole lot better. But I've seen that usually that's a year 2 or 3 thing, and year 1 is a lot of work to figure out what our capacity is, what we have the money for. So the biggest thing there is reset our goals every year, making sure our budget priorities align with our budget. And you have to forgive me, I'm a new father, so this looks a little more like a child's board game than I intended it to. But this is where we are today. So you heard me mention the meetings in the community. So I would like to kick this off Q4, since we have 5 districts and only 4 quarters, doing 2 right off the bat to get us going, and then rotating that throughout the year. You'll see the stars in between, and that's where the stars and the team and I were working our butts off to make sure you look amazing and we all look great in the community, and we're prepared and tackling those goals. So you'll see the reference points there, as I mentioned, to the state of the county, hopefully Q2. That gives us a little bit of time to get prepared, know what we're up against, know what we report on, and what measures we've already seen some success in. And then 2 quarters after that, I think that's a good opportunity to go to the Community Champions Banquet. We've had a little bit of time, a full year under our belt, and then we can report back to the community on what our success and progress is so far. In addition to going to your districts formally, I would highly recommend maybe a little informal approach too, where we lose the suit coats, lose the ties, go to people where they are. Coffee and conversation is what I currently brand it. It could be whatever works for the community, but reaching them where they are, having those open, candid conversations. So the formal approach, the informal approach. So each one of your districts has had all of us coming out and speaking at least twice a year formally, and we're seeing that success. We're reporting out, and the community is hearing more about our progress. Chairman, Commission, I'm really grateful for your time today, and I wanted to save a little time for any questions that you may have, and really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Scott. Does any other commissioner have any questions? No? Seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you.
We appreciate you today. Okay, next we will have Ms. Bencomo. Welcome, thank you for joining us.
You may want to pull the microphone down a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have trouble too with mine getting into right angle.
All right, hopefully you can hear me. Good afternoon, Chair, County Commissioners, and those who have joined us here this afternoon. My name is Barbara Bencomo, and I'm happy to be here to discuss your strategic plan, and congratulations on adoption of the plan. I know from my own experience, it takes a lot of hard work, coordination, engagement, and decision-making to focus on the priorities that will build value in our community. The focus on this presentation is on next steps to activate the plan and to ensure our community thrives. I'm going to talk a little bit generally about strategic plans and then very specifically about the Doña plan. All right. So before we discuss the Doña County plan, I'd like to take a moment to talk in general about why strategic plans are important and helpful in transforming communities. First and foremost, the process of strategic planning gives us the opportunity to engage with the community, to understand hopes and needs, and to prioritize the actions that we will take in order to help our community prosper. After plan adoption, we need to evaluate our resources in our organization to ensure we have the funding and capacity to achieve our goals. We need to set milestones to ensure progress, and we need to help the community understand how the plan is relevant to their daily lives. Ultimately, a strategic plan is a partnership with the community. It's our commitment that we're taking the actions needed in order for us all to experience success and to feel hopeful about our future. In the Doña County Strategic Plan, belonging and civic muscle is at its center. It's the foundation of faith in government, and it's fundamental to success in every other strategic initiative. How can we help the community feel connected? Do they feel empowered to vote and encouraged to volunteer? How can we line up to support the needs of the community? Do our residents feel heard? Are their concerns reflected in the policies and programs we develop? These are the questions at the heart of belonging and civic muscle. So one of the actions that's critical under this vital condition is engagement and communication. As public servants, there's nothing more important than meaningful engagement. Professionally, I've had experience with community engagement and communications, facilitating public discussions and work sessions, meeting with small groups to explain government functions and to hear concerns, and developing new tools and programs to engage and gather community input. In all cases, the need to be understood and to understand is universal and critical to building positive relationships with our community. When we show respect and are welcoming in our interactions, when we communicate in the ways and places where people feel comfortable, we weave tighter bonds with our community. So let's talk a little bit about implementation. It should be through a broad plan that includes many ways to provide and absorb information, face-to-face, electronic portals, through surveys, town halls, and academies in which we invite the public to learn more about their government. We need to address language barriers and transportation challenges. To foster meeting participation, we could more frequently utilize community centers, schools, and fire stations that are closer to where people live and work. When we stream meetings, we could facilitate off-site watch parties to assist those who may not have the technology to participate otherwise. We need to hear from our community and we need to listen. I'd like to also note that engagement is not always formal and planned. When you work for local government, you're always an ambassador for your organization when you're out in the community. I like to enjoy our beautiful outdoors. The pictures you see in this presentation are all my own, taken during my outdoor adventures in the area. And often I meet people, and when they hear where I work, they inevitably have questions for themselves or for a friend about city operations and programs. And it's a great opportunity to share information, listen, learn about their interests, and provide assistance. Just this Tuesday at National Night Out, I was at a booth handing out cookies and coloring books, which were very popular, and a gentleman came to our table to ask about programs at the city related to the unhoused. After talking for a while, he gave us a phone number so that we could provide him some more information. But before he left, he looked at us and he said, "Don't forget about me." To me, that gets to the heart of the job that we have, the very important job to build trust with the community through accessible, responsive communication and engagement. Regarding outcomes, and I'm not going to read everything on this slide, but I'd like to make some general statements. First, we need to remember that measures should not just be quantitative. We can't just focus on number of meetings we have or number of reports that we generate. We also must measure the impact we're having, the relationships we're building, whether the community feels heard, and whether they feel understood. This requires dynamic methods like surveys, focus groups, interviews, but it gives a much better gauge of whether we're achieving our ultimate goals. And also generally, for a 5-year plan, measures are typically tracked quarterly, reviewed publicly at least annually, and evaluated after 3 years or so to ensure that the plan is still relevant. Another important action under belonging and civic muscle involves technology. There's been a lot of focus on broadband internet access at the local, state, and federal level, and for very good reason. Technology has the power to bring us together, but technology can also leave people behind. The National League of Cities, in its report on bridging the digital divide, stated that internet access is no longer a cutting-edge luxury. It's an essential utility to participate in everyday life. We need technology for banking, shopping, studying, working, and a lot of times to access government information. I've had so many people tell me that the things they used to do face-to-face now require an app or a website, and they don't feel comfortable or confident navigating the technology. During the pandemic, we had people in our library parking lot accessing the internet to do homework or to complete job applications because they didn't have access at home. An estimate show that 23% of New Mexico households cannot access reliable internet. So this is a challenge we must address. In our county, we have been participating in a regional initiative for the last few years to understand the community needs and chart a course of action on broadband access. The county, city, state IT departments, schools, service providers, and others have worked together with the goal of expanded, low-cost access to the internet and devices, and to build skills so people can use technology. My team has assisted with data collection and technical expertise. Borderplex Connect has been doing an outstanding job of helping people access and use technology. Through our library, we've funded programs like our Tech Tent, where we encourage people to bring their electronic devices so we can show them how to use them. But we have more work to do. We need to access funds to build out network infrastructure and to reactivate programs that have expired, such as the Affordable Connectivity Program. It helps low-income households pay for internet service and connected devices, like a laptop or a tablet. There's a current bill in Congress which would fund this program, again, because it expired. And that is something that could really benefit our community, and we could actively lobby for that. So the collaboration with our city, state, and federal partners must continue for funding, technical expertise, so that we can provide this essential utility to those most in need. The second vital condition I'd like to discuss is the basic need for
Mr.
health
Chair.
and safety. Sorry about that. Excuse me?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we want to wait until the end and let her finish?
No, actually, I would like to go back one
Okay,
slide.
go ahead.
Can we please?
This slide?
Yes, okay, you said that, if I heard you correctly, you said 23% of the people don't have access to broadband?
Reliable internet technology.
Okay, how do they, when you said they were in the parking lot doing their homework, so they have devices like phones and computers and things like that, but it's the broadband are missing? So what year was that data? Because I heard something closer to 70%. So what year was that?
So the information regarding the 23% don't have access to reliable internet technology just was released in the governor's press release last week regarding the 670+ million that's available for working on our broadband access in the state of New
Okay,
Mexico.
so that's as of 2024. I think the last numbers I heard were like 70% in 2021 before COVID and everything, so.
Okay,
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out how current that was because it wasn't the numbers I remembered.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, the second vital condition I'd like to discuss is the basic need for health and safety, because it's impossible to thrive in the absence of this vital condition. In particular, I'd like to talk about addiction and crime, which have seriously impacted our community. We've struggled to address the impacts of the deadly opioid crisis. Since 2019, we've seen a decrease in heroin in our community, but a drastic increase in the number of fentanyl pills. Seizures in the city over the last year have increased 500%. Nationwide, there have been over 500,000 overdose deaths, and in 2020 alone, 106,000, the most of any year. Public safety and other responders and service providers are working hard to address the increases in crime and addiction, and we've been meeting with state and federal officials to explore support for programs and for legislation to help. I'd like to emphasize that this is one slide on a very complex problem that is critical to the well-being of the community. So as such, it's only one part of the discussions and actions needed. So many lives have been torn apart by crime and addiction, and yet we have hope that we'll be able to address this issue in part through the opioid settlement funds coming from state and federal litigation. Between the county and the city, our community will see almost $25 million. This doesn't count the funds that the state is also receiving to spend on this important issue. The county and the city have formed a joint advisory council, which I co-facilitate with Jamie Michael, Director of Health and Human Services. We've come together in order to avoid duplication of efforts, to leverage and multiply the impact of these funds, and to develop evidence-based recommendations for expenditures. We have a framework that we're utilizing from the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. The guiding principles are to spend money to save lives, use evidence to guide spending, invest in youth prevention, ensure racial equity, and develop a fair and transparent process. Oops, excuse me. The outcomes you see here are not my recommendations. Those will be coming from the Advisory Council to the County Commission and the City Council in the coming months. However, they're examples of the potential impacts we may be measuring. And this initiative, I'd like to point out, has had so much collaboration. I haven't even listed all of the entities who've already participated in focus groups, surveys, interviews, and who serve on the Advisory Council. The effort will continue once actions are adopted by the Commission and by the City Council. We'll be partnering with all of these entities and more in order to provide the services that save lives. And we need to be completely transparent in how the funds are being spent and what we're achieving with them. That means periodic public reviews, such as the work sessions we've already been having, real-time access to reports on funds received and funds spent, and annual audits, in addition to continued input from responders, service providers, and those who are impacted by addiction. Addressing addiction is an incredibly important step in meeting the community need for health and safety. And with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity and for the ability to share my perspectives and ideas on implementing this strategic plan to build value and foster success and hope in the community. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any follow-up questions? Seeing none, thank you for today. Okay, next we have Stephen Lopez. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioners, for this opportunity to speak with you and give some information to the audience as well. My name is Stephen Lopez, and I am going to be presenting some of my ideas for implementation of Doña County's 2024 strategic plan. The two vital conditions that I have chosen to focus on this afternoon are on the basic needs for health and safety and on humane housing. Now, the humane housing is not as large a component of the 2024 strategic plan. It's actually noted on page 3 that it will be a focus of future efforts. But I want to explain why I think it's important that we actually start on it now while we're addressing everything else. And that's because if you look back at something that's been around for 80 years in various forms, look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we look at if we want people to reach that pinnacle that the two candidates before me mentioned, that belonging and civic muscle at the center of this, that self-actualization, as you might refer to it on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've got to make sure we're meeting their needs down at the base of that pyramid. Their physiological needs, which includes housing, which includes food, which includes clean water, and then their safety and security. As we start addressing those needs, we then are able to position them well to start feeling that sense of belonging, that sense that somebody's caring about them. So I totally agree with them. We do want to get to that center. I just wanted to really focus on how we need to hit those lower levels as we start moving forward. On the basic needs for health and safety, just for the benefit of everybody to make sure they understand what that means, it's more than just law enforcement. It's more than just fire. Safe drinking water has become much more important over the last decade or two for our region. It's actually up and down the Rio Grande Valley, from Colorado all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, where the Rio Grande River now doesn't even reach many years. It's not a unique condition to Doña County, but we have now seen where we are starting to have some challenges, where the water that we're having to pump out for clean drinking water requires treatment for arsenic. That's a new level of complexity that 20 years ago, our communities did not have to worry about. People sank a well in the valley and drank straight from it. We now need to start looking at how we can support the 57 water utilities that now exist in our area. And maybe 57 is too many, and we need to start looking at consolidation, partnering with them. But we definitely need to make sure, no matter what, that we have a way to get clean, safe drinking water to all of our residents, including those in the 38 colonias. Food is also a basic health and safety need, and we actually have some great community partners who are working with food banks, working with volunteers to get food into the hands, the mouths, the stomachs of people who need it. I point that out because you all know that I was with the Office of Emergency Management until recently. And one of the things that we discovered is a lot of federal efforts ignore the realities of our constituents. They want people to prepare for a disaster by putting away enough food for 72 hours. We have people who don't have food for today or tomorrow, much less food that they can put away and tell their kids they can't have. So we've got to make sure that we are addressing those, and I'm very proud that the county is working with some of our partners to put food pantries out in our communities. So they're not having to rely on transportation just to the city of Las Cruces. Clean air is also important on our list. That's part of that basic needs for health and safety. And one that people often think, well, we can't do a whole lot about that. You all realize, you've heard the presentations from our roads and engineering, we have 700 miles of dirt roads. Guess what one of our biggest causes of particulate matter that gets into the lungs of our residents is? It's dirt roads. I'm not suggesting we pave all 700 miles of dirt road, but maybe we don't need 700 miles of dirt roads. And that's a discussion we need to have with our communities. We have a lot out in, for example, the West Mesa area that maybe if we put in one paved road, we can eliminate 2 or 3 dirt roads and reduce also that particulate matter that's getting into the air and increase the clean air that our residents have available for breathing. And then, of course, there is the physical safety side that we do need to focus on. Crime often comes to mind when people talk about health and safety. What happened in this room just a few hours ago is a great example that the county is moving in the right direction as we welcomed 20 new deputies out of the academy and onto the streets. That is something we need to continue to focus on. I have certainly heard it from our residents. They want to make sure that we have enough people out there to serve their needs so that when they do call for help, or even before they call for help, there is somebody that is in their neighborhood on a regular basis.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
Yeah, sorry. I'm confused about something you just said. You said we have over 1,700 miles of dirt roads. Is that what you said?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, it's 700.
Okay, so we have 700 miles of dirt roads, and you suggested, if I understood you correctly, that we can pave one road and replace 2 or 3 roads with that? Is that what I heard you say?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, in some cases, that may very well be possible.
So,
That is something that we need to study and identify those opportunities, which would also, of course, reduce the effort that is required to maintain those dirt roads.
so my confusion is this. If we have dirt roads, they're probably being used by somebody who lives on them. And so you're, if I understand you correctly, you're suggesting that we try to find roads that no one lives on, close those roads down and require everybody to go to a different road that we pave? Is that what you're suggesting?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Reynolds, there actually are roads that nobody lives on that for some reason we have adopted as county roads and do maintain out in the West Mesa area.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's what sounds like an interesting study. All right, thank you.
It will be, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So continuing on medical, we have some opportunities ahead of us to improve medical service, especially emergency medical service to our community, as well as behavioral health. On the emergency medical side, you're aware our fire department just received a grant 2 days ago from the state to increase the number of firefighters and emergency medical technicians. That is something that our fire chief's been working on, and that positions us well to actually start looking at a return to a model that we had 20 years ago, where when somebody needed an ambulance, they called 911 and an ambulance got there and there was no charge to get to the scene, no charge to evaluate them. That model changed during the last 20 years. And now if somebody calls an ambulance for somebody that didn't want it, didn't need it, there's still a charge that gets assessed. As a result, people hesitate to call for ambulances because there is fear of somebody being charged. We can do better as a county, and there are funding sources available that if our residents are supportive, we can bring to bear to allow free emergency medical services to get to them without fear of having a charge. And that can be very instrumental for particular segments of our population where they already are not able to afford a lot of treatment. And the last thing we need is somebody experiencing chest pain and fearful to call for help for somebody to evaluate them and determine whether or not it is just indigestion or if it is something more serious. Obviously, our fire, our traffic, and our disasters are other aspects of physical safety that we have a good opportunity to make big improvements on. And on the disaster side, within the strategic plan, the Office of Emergency Management is actually kind of leading those aspects of the vital condition and has actually already accomplished a couple of those items from the strategic plan, which shows that our strategic plan is not just aspirational and something we're going to do in the future. It's something that our county teams are already actually engaging with and carrying out. On the humane housing, this is more than just people who are unhoused. Elements on this include making sure that houses are structurally safe. A good element of that is in our allowing people to build in safe locations or encouraging building in safe locations and not building homes in arroyos right below the outflow of a dam. We've seen what happens with that. It also gives us an opportunity to communicate with our public about known hazards. And we've had a little bit of discussion, and it is a program I really want to get kicked off for Doña County, to where people can type in the address of their current home or a home they are looking at buying and find out if it's in the floodplain easily. Find out if it's a known wildfire risk area. Find out other hazards that exist that they may not be typically thinking about, so that we are giving our constituents the information they need to make good decisions. And then access to essential infrastructure is another component of this vital condition. That is that access to water and wastewater, access to electricity and roads, communications, which was pointed out earlier, and being close to essential services like schools, food, and recreation. That proximity is part of that humane housing. We can't say that we have good services in our colonias if they're having to drive 10 miles to the closest place to get any food, and that happens to be a dollar store. And they've got to drive 30 or 40 miles to actually get to a grocery store. Those are things that the county can and should be influencing positively on economic development. So how do we do it? It starts with having a steering team for engagement. It can't be the county manager. It has to be the people involved in or with the responsibility for our vital conditions. And then we need to have that robust outreach. As was pointed out previously, we've got to have not just one way of reaching people, we've got to try to reach them any way we can where they are at, not expect them to come to one community meeting we might have. Yes, we'll have community meetings, but we also need to have those online feedback opportunities. We need to have easy ways for that online feedback. It can be as simple as that thumbs up, thumbs down, providing opportunities for quick, easy comments. People who have engaged with social media are fairly comfortable with those approaches. We also should be finding them at high traffic locations for surveying, setting up a table outside of a Walmart, a Sam's Club, whatever it might be, to get their input. Continuing that engagement with community leaders throughout, that's our state officials, that is our municipalities, that is our school officials, and then those public engagement sessions with the Board of County Commissioners that you all have had already as the strategic plan was developed. This highlighted area is actually what is the 3 phases of the design charrette. And it is intended to be an iterative feedback loop that continues on so that the strategic plan is a living document, not something that we visit only once every 3, 5, 20 years. We also need to update our comprehensive plan, which is Vision 2040. We need to make it Vision 2050, and that should be starting soon if we are going to achieve that goal. Fortunately, all of that information we gather up above should be feeding into that new comprehensive plan. And then we have some responsibilities assigned to implementation teams. We need to make sure they are carrying them out. but we also need to look at assigning new responsibilities for things that have actually come up for us since the adoption of the strategic plan. And then we do need those regular activities and reports, that accountability element for our departments. And then strategic investments in public safety, in our colonias, our roads, are all opportunities. We also need to look at strategic investments in recreational opportunities to really enhance that quality of life, take advantage of economic development opportunities, and we need to engage with our utilities. As you all know, a lot of our utilities are privately owned and operated. We need to look at ways that we can influence them positively and/or ways that we can expand the county-operated utilities. And then we need to continue building that culture of caring and, again, continually re-engage the community. They shouldn't just hear from us this year. They should be hearing from us on a very regular basis. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your opportunity to come and talk with you and for everybody in the public that came out to listen.
Thank
Are there
you.
any questions?
Yeah, Shannon.
I have another question. Yes, you said that we want to create a database to identify how homes or property that's actually in a flood or fire zone. Does our database currently capture that information?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, we do have that data, kind of. So our Flood Commission does have the approved flood maps. They are in GIS layers, and therefore it can be found, but it is not in a version that the average person is going to be able to understand. And we also have a lot of those flood maps that you will see there's a hard line drawn, and it is called limit of study. And that's because back when those flood maps were developed, there were no houses in that area, so they didn't study any further up. But we know developments have happened or are underway now in many of those areas, and so we need to at least be able to identify you're now in an area, the place you're looking for didn't get evaluated for flood safety. So you might want to talk to the Flood Commission before you buy or build.
We have a lot of developments where we actually require that they actually put in a retention pond as part of the property. So, I mean, at some point in time, we knew that there were flooding. So now we still have we don't have the retention pond requirement noted on the information that we provide when people look up property either, do we?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, you are correct. When a formal subdivision plot, for example, takes place, there is a requirement for ponding. Often that ponding is within the individual housing, that house plat, that one lot. And we have definitely seen over the years that people have not maintained those. They've often been filled in either by sediment or intentionally.
So your statement about actually making it available for people to search their property and find both water and fire is going to be a pretty extensive effort to look up fire risks and water risks and plats and everything like that. So is that really realistic?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, you are absolutely right. It is a big lift, but yes, it is realistic. There are actually a couple of locations in the United States that are doing it, so we know it is possible, but it does require some investments. More importantly, it requires cooperation.
Okay. Wouldn't it be better? I'm just throwing this out there. Wouldn't it be better to contract with a already existing insurance company that uses that data to decide policies and ask them to provide that for us?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, not only might insurance companies be interested in helping on that side, they may also be interested in helping in financing.
They may even already have the information, and all we have to do
Some
is
of it, yes, sir.
pay them to use their database that already exists. Because I mean, when we look at when we looked at the cost of policies when our fire was actually deemed to be unavailable, fire protection, the insurance companies already knew how much they were charging and how much of a risk it was in all the areas. So, I mean, I would think we want to look at both before we make a significant investment in anything to do that, but it sounds like a great idea. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. believe we might need to go out and get Mr. Tyner.
You may have noticed that I'm an equal opportunity abuser. I ask everybody a question because I think it's important that we understand what they're saying. So, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Tyner, and I am going to talk briefly about the Doña Strategic Plan 2024. First of all, what is a strategic plan? A strategic plan is basically a roadmap that contains goals and tasks to sustain and improve the community. There are 5 essential components of any strategic plan. The mission exemplifies what actions you currently perform for your residents and additional actions you want to perform in the future. The vision statement builds on the mission and states what you hope to achieve in the future. Strategic priorities is number 3. You identify certain goals on which to focus, whether it be economy, transportation, specific goals. Number 4, you must plan and ensure staff and residents know their roles. And you should keep your plan simple to ensure it's easily understood by all. And finally, number 5, is develop measurement and assessments to track your progress and identify achievements and areas which improvement is needed. The 2 vital conditions on which I will briefly speak is the thriving natural world and meaningful work and wealth. The thriving natural world includes sustainable resources such as accessible natural spaces and freedom from hazards. Examples are clean air, water, and soil, healthy ecosystems, parks, and freedom from environmental factors like extreme heat, wind, or flooding. County stakeholders in this area include Health Department, Community Development, Facilities and Parks, Emergency Management, and Flood Commission. Some actions to undertake to ensure clean natural environment is to include all county departments with fuel tanks to ensure they're well maintained and leak-free. That's very basic. Utilize the assistance of Health Department to investigate any sewage spills or unpermitted discharges. Utilize emergency management to ensure the appropriate agencies are contacted to investigate and remediate spills or hazards within the county, and also to assist residents or other agencies during times of inclement weather and acts of God. Utilize county development to maintain and protect the county's infrastructure. Utilize facilities and parks to ensure natural spaces are well maintained and accessible. Utilize the Flood Commission to maintain and develop flood control structures. Some additional potential partners are the Cooperative Extension Service. So they provide soil testing, crop and livestock assistance, and pest eradication information. Include state agencies. They have environmental regulatory authority and enlist the assistance of other agencies or faith-based organizations to provide cooling stations and/or temporary housing to those in need. Monitoring and measuring is to ensure all county departments document all relatable preventative maintenance activities as well as any responses and actions due to work orders or trouble calls. This should include when the trouble is communicated and the time taken to respond and to correct the issue. Ensure new construction or improvements are well documented by each department. Maintain logs of those in need being assisted by visiting cooling stations or shelters. And residential questionnaires and online surveys may also be utilized to gauge public perception of how these needs are being met. The second area is meaningful work and wealth. This entails rewarding work, careers, standards of living. Examples are job and career training and retention, higher paying jobs, and financial counseling services. County stakeholders include community development, Jetport, treasurer, and the probate. Economic and industrial development and retention is critical to producing employment opportunities for county and regional residents. Community development may provide basic infrastructure, which is also key to this development. Many companies require access to local airports and they're able to locate here. Some additional partners and assets can be the economic development for public or private sectors, as they are critical in attracting new businesses as well as state agencies that are able to provide recruiting or funding assistance in attracting businesses or expansion of existing entities. Some options to monitor and measure are by tracking the number of new business licenses as well as the number of new jobs created or retained, documenting any improvements or new installation of business-related infrastructure is important, as is any improvements to the jetport. Any new aircraft being based there is also an indicator of increased business activities. It's imperative, in order to be successful, your plan must be an active document with buy-in from all stakeholders. Must be simple and adaptive. When changes are required, you should be able to update regularly, and progression should be constantly monitored and communicated to all stakeholders. I believe inclusion is essential and that all elected officials feel they and their departments are well represented in order for everyone to work toward a common goal to facilitate the task to create a thriving community. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Yes, Shannon.
I think I'm the only one asking questions. Back on the additional potential partners,
Yes.
you actually list the Cooperative Extension Service as a potential partner. In what way would they participate?
Well, I know in my experience, they've assisted with any kind of environmental factors. They've pest control, rodent control, soil samples. They do soil testing. So, you know, that's my thought as far as a healthy environment. If there's anything that needs to be tested, to be looked at, they've always helped us in our county government.
Okay, do they also do anything with animal control or anything like that?
They do not do animal control. It's primarily crops and vegetation. They do deal with some livestock issues.
Yeah.
But they do deal with livestock, but not domesticated animals.
Like what kind of livestock? I mean, what would they do with livestock?
Horses, cows.
Like what?
They test for any kind of diseases. They test for diseases. If you have something that you can't identify, they help with that. They have a county extension agent in each county that can assist, especially farmers in that situation.
Or if they had a livestock accident on the road? Truck turned over?
No, the Department of Agriculture used to do that, but they do that no longer. So the state sent that back down to the county level, so that's animal control.
Okay. The other question you got on county stakeholders, how does the treasurer fit in there?
The probate and the treasurer, I think, assisted in coming up with those. I know the treasurer and the probate also. The treasurer collects the property taxes for the county.
Okay.
And the probate office, I think, deals with transferal of property.
That's
when
correct.
someone's deceased. But they were actually listed as county stakeholders as having input into that item.
Okay, input into community development or
Yes.
into input into rewarding work, career, standard of living? Input into
Yes,
what?
this was meaningful work and wealth that they were included as far as having been included in input in that meaningful work and wealth.
Okay, so the wealth would be passed on by the probate, is what this is suggesting?
Yes,
Okay, and the treasurer would create wealth, work,
as far as collecting the taxes.
just collecting taxes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Tyner.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. With that being said, that concludes our presentation from our finalists today. And at this time, we can definitely move to convene. To adjourn, yeah.
I'll move approval, or move for adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sanchez and a second by Commissioner Reynolds. Can you give us a roll call, please, on adjournment? Oh, thank you.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo,
Yes.
Chair Shajo Hernandez.
Yes, and we're adjourned.
And thank you all for coming, by the way, and for the
Yes, thank
presenters for
you.
presenting.